Oh man. Hey, hey, hey. What up? What's going on, everybody? Hopefully you're doing very well out there in the wide, wide world, the widest of worlds. Welcome back to the Inner Storyteller. Welcome back to this podcast. Welcome back to the channels. Don't forget the Ufulu Child channel is always also on deck and a part of the family. And the Inner Storyteller channel represents my new book, The Inner Storyteller, as well as my growing personal philosophy that shall one day be, you know, fully fledged curriculum for students of all ages. Today, we are asking the question, why do we have a government? Why do we have one? Hmm? Why we got one? Why do the world's nations have governments, right? Um, the same question worded in a way that's more favorable to my ears, more preferable to my brain, is why do the regions of the world have governments? Because I'm sure if governing bodies naturally formed, the borderlines would look way different. And no country, no nation, no government would be as big as, like, let's say, a Russia, a China, a United States, a Canada, etc. It's just way too many people. It's too much to try to manage people in any ethical way, unless you're dealing with the religion of authority, which is the religion of man's authority, the religion that government and or a governing body is a legitimate and natural aspect of human life, which it is not. Or the religion and or the religion of monetary value, which is the religion of economics, and you know puts forth the idea that money is natural and a necessary part of human life, which it is not. Under those two religions, of course, it's very difficult to imagine um, it being too hard to manage that many people over that vast of a space on Earth, under one umbrella, under one governing body. But with those two religions intact, of course, it's easy because money is this sort of universal gatekeeper to resources and rule making, right? With enough money, you can start to be one of the people that makes the rules. Now, before we actually get into that, I have to say my intros. So before anything gets underway, please like the video. You know what I'm saying? I need you to like the video. You need you to like the video. If you haven't heard, there's actually some really cool perks to liking the video. You get to be first in line at the roller coaster. Okay? If you go to the roller coaster and you tell the person at the front that you like the video, they're gonna like give you a special pass. It's got my face on it, and then you just go to the front of the line, and you can like keep going to the front of the line as soon as you get off. It's amazing. Um, and there's some other perks, but I'll keep those secret. Maybe I'll tell you at the end of the video. If you are here, good people, then you are in for some real conversations. Okay, we talk about religion, we talk about money, we talk about anarchy, we talk about culture, how mankind is manipulated from the shadows by forces that do not have our best interests at heart because perhaps they are completely evil. But we're not bashing faith systems here. We're not calling people stupid for having a religion or subscribing to one. We are simply examining the psychological cause and effect of the stories that we have the most faith in this life, the ones we have the most stake in, and how those stories help shape society. Now, that examination sits right alongside an honest look at the current human condition, which is slavery. government is slavery, good people. And the question we have to keep coming back to is what can actually be improved with a proper understanding of the inner storyteller and how it works. Now, if any of that makes you a little uneasy, makes you a little angry or uncomfortable in any way, please be assured, be reassured that although you are encouraged to stay, maybe confront some of those feelings, you are 100,000,000,000% welcome to leave at any time after you like the video. Now, let's go ahead and dive right in to somebody that has always just kept it real, brought us back to homeostasis, checked in with what we can all plainly see with our eyes. And let's hear what he has to say real quick.
Oh, look! Yet another day of watching full-grown adults treat American politics like it's a Disney movie. Crying about how much they miss Obama or whining that if Kamala had won, we wouldn't be in this mess. It is honestly exhausting watching you people swap out the figureheads at the podium and expect a completely different machine to emerge. Wake up and smell the corporate backing. Because whether the guy in the Oval Office is wearing a sharp blue tie or a red hat, they are all pulling the exact same levers. The massive Wall Street firms, defense contractors like Lockheed Martin and RTX, and tech giants aren't picking sides. They are funding both the Democratic and Republican national committees simultaneously.
You know, it's like, yeah, that's exactly what's happening, right? The tech giants, big gas, big pharma, big food packing, they are not picking sides every 4 years. Okay, they're not like, oh, this person is in favor of policies that'll help me. No, they influence the policy. They go to the right people, take them to the right dinner, may or may not be on an island, okay, may or may not have $30,000 items on the menu, and uh, influence whatever the policy is going to be, right? But us in the 99%, we're just happy-go-lucky, uh, headed towards the slaughterhouse with a smile. Let's continue.
They don't give a damn about your vote because they already bought the entire stadium. Remember Obama's historic 2008 cabinet that was supposed to bring hope and change? WikiLeaks exposed a literal spreadsheet sent by Citigroup executive Michael Froman vetting and handpicking his top cabinet positions before the election was even decided. Trump packed his administration with Goldman Sachs executives, including his Treasury Secretary at the time, Steven Mnuchin. And the Biden-Kamala administration immediately brought BlackRock executives like Brian Deese in to steer the economic wheel. The faces on the campaign posters change, but the corporate board of directors stays exactly the same.
Yes, and here's the thing, good people. When somebody new gets elected to public office, what exactly does that change or affect in the private sector? Meaning, the board of trustees, the board of directors, right? The top brass at the corporations and just the corporate level that feature people that have enough money to buy elections. What changes in that apparatus when there's an upset at the polls? If the answer that came to you automatically is, well, that doesn't necessarily change anything, you'd be correct, right? But we have in our mind that this ritual of going to the poll and voicing our opinion on who we want to be our slave master for the next 4 years, or at least who we want the face of our slave masters to be for the next 4 years, that when we do that and when we voice our opinion like that, we are somehow changing the behavior patterns, the desires, and the moral. Let's just say we're changing the ability of those in the corporate offices to stop doing what they're doing. And I'm not just talking about their hiring practices, right? I'm talking about their real life influences of public officials, right? Like I said, taking people to dinner, um, blackballing people, taking people out to certain experiences, and then having blackmail all of a sudden, and influencing what encroachment the government is going to do next on our all of our freedom, right? But let's continue. Let's hear some more.
You've been conditioned by an education system that doesn't want independent thinkers. It wants compliant, obedient workers who mistake partisan cheerleading for intelligence. Remember how much everyone hated George W. Bush's corporate high-stakes testing nightmare, No Child Left Behind? Obama didn't scrap it. His education secretary, Arne Duncan, just gave it a glossy rebranding called Race to the Top, forcing public schools to compete for federal crumbs using the exact same hyper-standardized metrics that strip critical thinking out of the classroom.
I mean, how many episodes have we already had about the public school system, right? We're already like 6 episodes in, going in on the public school system. Make sure y'all check those videos out after this one.
Both parties intentionally protect a system where public education is largely funded by local property taxes, legally guaranteeing that poor neighborhoods stay underfunded, desperate, and funneled straight into low-wage labor or the military. But you don't care about the policy pipeline because you've turned partisan politics into a fanatical religion. You treat these career politicians like infallible saints. Liberals literally canonized Obama with a Nobel Peace Prize at the start of his term, and then spent 8 years completely ignoring the fact that his administration dropped over 26,000 bombs in a single year. 2016 alone.
2016 alone, 26,000 bombs. How many bombs, okay, does it take to get a job done? Right? Like, what kind of jobs are we doing that need 26,000 bombs in a year? And his drone program was more than just bombs, right? You use drones to shoot bullets sometimes. You use drones for direct energy um, weaponry sometimes, right? Just his drone program was extensive on what it could do to get jobs done. 26,000 bombs in 1 year on top of the rest of what he was doing. And this is before his NDAA, signing the NDAA into effect. Basically, you know, laughing at the whole idea and concept of freedom altogether and privacy. you know, I just want to know how many bombs it takes to get a job done. That's all I want to know.
And authorized a massive tenfold increase in drone strikes compared to Bush. It's a cult. If your team murders civilians, it's a necessary evil. If the other team does it, it's a sin. When it comes to the actual execution of state power, the policy line is practically a straight arrow through every single administration. You love to scream about the border, completely oblivious to the fact that the Obama administration was labeled deporter-in-chief for kicking out more than 2.7 million people over 8 years, averaging nearly 1,000 deportations a day, a faster pace, by the way, than Trump's first term. And if you think Kamala would have saved you, the Biden-Kamala administration used a combination of pandemic-era Title 42 expulsions and expedited Title 8 removals to carry out a staggering 4.4 million returns and expulsions. That is more repatriations than any single presidential term since George W. Bush. They use the same cages. They just adjust the PR lighting so you feel better about it. Bush built the Patriot Act to spy on you. Obama signed the extensions. Trump maintained it. And Biden-Kamala preserved it.
Everybody is in on a surveillance game. And the surveillance game is huge for these people, because surveillance now is not just, not that it ever really was, but it's not just like crime prevention and crime investigation, stuff like that. Now surveillance mainly 99% of it is just data, right? Building psychological profiles and purchasing profiles for every individual and funneling those data sets through AI to get the best advertising, to get the best military strategy that can be aimed domestically at your own people, to get them to comply with something or what have you. The best data to provide to recording studios and people that make the biggest movies and the biggest music to mind control you at, you know, breakneck speed without much effort. Surveillance now is much different than it used to be. Surveillance now is straight up like, this is this person's patterns, and with all of this data of their patterns, we can predict what they want at what time of day, what they don't want at what time of day, what mood they're likely in at what time of day, what purchasing habits they have, how we can push the limits of the purchasing habits with, this combination of whatever psychological triggers, in an advertisement or some sort of ad funnel, what have you, right? Surveillance is, it's not the same. Okay, it's not just trying to, who's going to be a threat to the military, or who's going to be a threat to this and that apparatus. No, nowadays it's different.
The only reason you don't see this total continuity is because you sit there letting a multi-billion-dollar media empire blast pure propaganda into your skull 24 hours a day. The press isn't a watchdog, it's a corporate megaphone. Just 6 massive conglomerates, empires like Comcast, Disney, and the recently merged Paramount Skydance, control over 90% of all the media consumed in this country. They pretend to love free speech, yet the Obama administration used the 1917 Espionage Act to criminally prosecute whistleblowers 8 different times, including targeting national security heroes like Thomas Drake, John Kirikou, and Chelsea Manning, which was more than all previous administrations in U.S. history combined.
Right. So what a whistleblower is, he's talking about how Obama was locking up whistleblowers. A whistleblower is somebody who was on the inside, either retired, got fired, or otherwise is now on the outside, and who decides to go public with inside information that could either be criminal or so frowned upon that it might as well be criminal, because now you're going to lose your reputation in the court of public opinion now that this stuff is exposed, or at least that's how it's supposed to work. And Obama's administration sure did lock up and target, with law enforcement, more whistleblowers than any than all of U.S. history combined. Right? And this isn't a video. I hope you guys aren't watching this and thinking that he's trying to say that because people think that Kamala would have been better than Trump 2.0, he's advocating for Trump 2.0 by dissing Obama. And it's like, no, 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 no. That's not what he's doing. What he's saying is changing the figurehead, changing the person sitting in the seat doesn't change the machine. Right? Changing the color of the start button, changing the color of the key that you use to start the machine doesn't change what the machine does. The machine is going to kick out the same results that it always has, no matter who's in the seat. That's what he's saying.
Trump took that exact blueprint and used it to aggressively hunt down journalists' phone logs. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News are funded by the exact same billionaire class that cuts checks to the politicians. Their entire business model is keeping you emotionally hijacked, terrified, and violently fighting a manufactured culture war so you never look up, look past the theater, and realize that on every single issue that actually matters, housing, healthcare, wages, and war, both parties are in absolute unbroken alignment.
Both parties are in absolute unbroken alignment. Couldn't have said it better myself. His name is Aaron. He is on TikTok. I cannot have a TikTok. I've been kicked off of TikTok I think I had 3 pages banned, and then I think they banned my number. So like I can't even log in as a guest on TikTok and like see other people's posts. You know what I'm saying? It's super crazy and ridiculous. But regardless, if what we get from having a government is a through line of when it comes to housing, when it comes to health or health care, when it comes to war, and when it comes to law enforcement or surveillance, big surveillance, you get a through line no matter who is in the government, meaning no matter what promises are made during a campaign, uh, the agenda of more and more mass surveillance, more and more police state, less and less health, more and more disease, and make it harder and harder for people to own land and own a home, um, then why do we have a government to begin with, right? What is the purpose of having a government if what you get from government is the government owns yourself and your life, doesn't protect you, makes you sick, and keeps you broke or keeps you destitute, right? If you're already looking at the risk of feeling destitute, feeling a little hopeless, um, of some sort of coercion, you know, meeting you or being in your situation, if you fear the risk of the things that we already have with a government, then maybe try and not recognizing a government as a people, not as an individual, but as a whole people, come together and decide, you know what, we don't have one anymore. And anytime you guys say something, we're just gonna say no, or we're gonna ignore you. And if you tell us to do something we're already doing, then we're not gonna do it any faster or your way. We're just gonna keep doing it the way that we see fit in our local communities, right? And we're gonna protect our own local communities way better than you can from problems that you're trying to prevent from the inside out. We're going to do a better job at policing ourselves and at preventing ourselves from going chaotic and at rehabilitating ourselves. We're going to do a better job at that than you ever have in the history of government and governments, and kick rocks, right? If we do that together as a people, not as an individual, we may have a better result in the conversations that really matter, like housing, healthcare, food, you know, stuff like that. But for right now, we're just playing this government game, and we have stuff like this to deal with. Check this out. This guy's story is incredible, and by incredible, I mean it's insane what the government is doing to him.
Hey, so the government won't let me live in this treehouse that I spent the last 4 years building, and the reason is incredibly stupid. As we already established, the county said I could build a treehouse, and the county seats changed, and the new guy said, hey, no, never mind, you need a permit for that, and that turned into like a 1.5-year battle, and they didn't want to give us a permit, and when they finally did give us a permit, they said, okay, fine, you can build it, but you need to make it bigger, up to 1,200 square feet, to meet our minimum size requirements, so we can tax you more. So we got the permit, and now there's a new problem. Now they say that my parents cannot build a house on the same property, which is over 100 acres, by the way, because now the treehouse is the primary residence, so we can't do another house. So we meet with the county again, and we're like, hey, so the treehouse is still only 750 square feet. We have not made it bigger, which means it meets your size requirements for an accessory structure, so we should still be able to build a main house over there. Nope. That's impossible. Why is that impossible? Well, because our ordinance strictly prohibits building the accessory structure before the main house, because then people just never build the main house. Yeah, but we're actually trying to build the main house, like right now. We're trying to build it, but you're saying no. So we go in circles and circles, and they're just like, sorry, it's impossible. You cannot build another house on the property. So my dad's like, well, can we just apply for a variance? And he's like, yeah, you can, but they'll definitely deny it. And then I found a loophole. I said to him, why don't we just divide the property on paper, draw an invisible line down the middle, and then my parents can pull a permit for this property, build their main house, and when they finish, we can reassemble the properties, and the treehouse becomes an accessory structure to the main house. Well, yeah, I guess I guess that could work, but you can't get a certificate of occupancy for your treehouse until your parents' house is finished, which means I can't live in it. Because in 2026, you need the government's permission to live in a house that you built.
What? Nigga, what? Like, what do you mean in 2026 you need a permit to live in the house that you built from the government? And before you built it, you already had the land. Meaning you already got the land from the government or from the bank or whatever. But obviously, the bank and the government is kind of the same thing because money is not real. Banks just basically do accounting and transfer of securities, which is debt instruments. And transferring and doing accounting isn't really doing anything, right? So the money, so the financial enforcement apparatus is the banks and the banksters, and the physical, land grab, people grab, kidnapping, and shoot 'em up, bang bang, in law enforcement apparatus is of course police and military. So basically, the banks are also government. That's all I'm trying to say. Anyway, already got the land from the government before he built. Obviously, you can't build something for 4 years without securing the land. So they already got the land, over 100 acres. Spent 4 years building a treehouse. A lovely looking treehouse, by the way. Shout out to that guy. Spent 4 years building it, then finds out that not only is it going to be a multi-year bureaucratic battle with the county to get him to be allowed to have his parents' house built on the same land that belongs to him, according to the accounting. Right now, of course, it doesn't really belong to him because he's asking for permission. If you're asking for permission, then you obviously have a master who it belongs to. But real life aside, on paper, this land belongs to him. And yet he has to go to the government, right? And they have to tell him no, his parents can't have a structure on the land because you built a tree house. And we have this law in place that prohibits people from building a secondary structure before building the primary structure. And I know that the only reason why we have definitions for primary structure and secondary structure are to make sure that we can tax people and exploit the um, product of their labor, exploit the fruits of their labor to the maximum extent. But meaning, I know you didn't come up with the concept of primary and secondary and all of this garbage. We came up with it and we just are enforcing it because we made something up one day and we decided to enforce it on you today. And we wouldn't enforce it if you were in the Rothschilds family or Rockefeller family. You could just do whatever you want on your land if you're from certain families, right? Or you have connections in certain circles. But you don't. You're just a regular guy and you're just exercising freedom. Therefore, we have to tell you no. No, you cannot. No, get out. Right? And then he finds a loophole. Okay, well, let's draw an imaginary border, split the property into two properties. I'm not giving up my land, but I'm basically owning two pieces of land now, one with one imaginary borderline. And we'll build my parents' house, and then we will, undo the boundary, the imaginary line, and that way, uh, everything is cool. And they say, okay, fine, as long as you don't live in the house that you just spent 4 years building, because uh, until the primary structure is built, because we have this primary, secondary shit that we made up, until the primary structure is built, and we can help you get around the rule of no secondary structures before the primary is finished, you have to be off of, the property. And it may take a while to build your parents' house, is sort of in the fine print. And it's like, wow, man, it's insane. It's insane. And it's like, it's supposed to be the home of the free. This is supposed to be the American dream, to be able to buy some land, you know, live off of it, govern yourself. That was supposed to be the vision of the founding fathers, right? It's like how does this even happen? And the answer is because government is slavery. No matter the country, no matter how long the government has been established and how many times they kind of changed their tune, every single time you have a group of people that fashion themselves or see themselves as fit to rule their peers, you have slavery. If there's any obedience to these people at all, right? If there's a whole ritual system and a bunch of costumes like suits and ties, or robes for like your judiciary or whatever, bunch of costumes, a bunch of rituals that happen, town hall meetings, voting, um, press conferences, all of these rituals, right? And all of these costumes and trappings of the religion of man's authority. If we just put away all of these toys that make up what we call government and decided to govern ourselves, right? To do absolutely everything the same except for play their game. Then suddenly, and the only caveat is police and military would have to participate. So police and military would have to quit their cult, and protect their own communities and protect, be a part of their own community. And if they want to keep on being like a protector as far as that kind of stuff and training and whatnot, they would have to do that in their own local space, right? Because obviously, if everybody but the police and military decided to come together, then we just have a bunch of dead bodies, and that's not good. So police and military quit their cult, and we just decide to put down the game of we have a government. And we said, no, we don't. Not anymore. Then shit like this, where you have a regular guy, young guy, spends 4 years of his life building a treehouse where he can live in his house and have his parents build on, right next to his house on this 100 acres, more than 100-acre piece of land. Um, and they can do so happily, and they can, you know, have their little compound, raise a huge family. He can get married and do his thing. You know, that's that's kind of it. This is what I wanted to talk about today. Why do we have a government? Because we obviously can do without, right? We obviously can do without having a government, and there's no universe. There's no rule in the universe that says if you don't have a government, your people are doomed to hell or something. Like there's no natural requirement to establish a group of individuals that are supposed to be divinely ordained to rule their peers. And the quicker we realize that, perhaps the quicker we can stop pretending like the Epstein list wasn't dropped and we don't have thousands of emails of people talking about eating kids open to the internet and nobody really rebelling or reacting appropriately to said news. All in all, the religion of monetary value, the religion of government, these these are religions that are extremely strong but stand on hollow ground. They don't have any foundation. And our obedience is actually the only fuel. And I know that we have a problem with self confidence, right? We don't think we're smart enough to govern ourselves. We don't think we're sophisticated enough We don't think we are calm enough and emotionally stable enough, but I think we are. And I think it's about time we take our own lives back. Okay, and so again, on this channel, we're not bashing faith systems or calling people stupid for having a religion. We are simply examining the stories that shape our lives, and that examination has to sit neatly right alongside an honest look at the current human condition, which is slavery. But it doesn't have to be. We don't have to stay in the condition of slavery. To change that, we have to ask certain questions. And the one question we got to keep coming back to, at least on this channel, is what can actually be improved with a proper understanding of the inner storyteller and how it works. I.e., what story are you willing to live? Please let me know in the comments, and I will see you tomorrow, most likely, hopefully, maybe, in the next one. Yeah, I mean?